In 2023, 85% of women were complaining about postmenopausal symptoms, yet their doctors tell them it's just part of the process. It's true that menopause is mandatory, but Dr. Nicole, can you share why menopausal symptoms may be optional?
Well, they definitely are optional. First and foremost, some women go through menopause like a breeze, and others, it's a total nightmare. So why is that happening? Obviously, there are some variables in between that are allowing some women to go through this natural process a whole lot easier. And being told it's just your age, suck it up and deal with it, is a poor excuse for not having any answers to give. And so we really find that leaves women totally dismissed, feeling unheard. Maybe they're offered a medication like an antidepressant, which makes them think, oh, maybe it's me, I'm crazy. That's really not cool. Oh, it's just your age, suck it up. You've got to live this way the rest of your life. That's so disempowering.
Yeah.
Also, oh, well, how did your mom go through it? So it's based on your genetics now, that how you're going to go through menopause. It's in your control, and we're being led to believe it isn't. And so I'm here to shake that up. I really want not only women, I want men to know about this too, but I really want women to understand their bodies and be more empowered in this stage of life, because I feel like this is a stage where we can step into our best selves, our best lives. We're finally rid of that monthly, visitor. And why can't we be free and sexy and juicy and enjoy this stage and be at our smartest, our wisest, our best, and be able to give that to the world instead of our worst selves.
Well said. So why is it that most doctors are saying suck it up or prescribing an antidepressant, or you even mentioned before birth control pills, or even female doctors are saying these things? Is it because they just don't know how to get to the cause, or they're misinformed? What is the reason why they're giving this information?
I do believe they're misinformed. I think it's around 15% of women that are actually getting some sort of actual care for menopause.
That's it.
And that's about it. And so the other 85% are being just left in the lurch, not knowing what to do. Even the female women doctors, I have plenty of members that have female gynecologists, female primary doctors. They're telling the same thing. They don't even know what to do for themselves. So how are they supposed to help their patients with this? So I don't think they're really taught. There's a general consensus that you go through menopause and you just stop making these hormones that we need. And so if you're either replacing them or you just have to deal with it because this is now how your body is, it's really the only options that are being given. And birth control is a fake synthetic version of progesterone. It's not, or estrogen, depending on what you're getting. So it's not actually a natural form, and it actually creates even more disruption, more problem, just like it for most women is also doing in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, being on birth control. It's not an answer. It's just a Band-Aid. And it may help for a little while, but the long term, and I hear it often that it doesn't help, that they get much worse symptoms, gaining 30 pounds, getting bloating and all kinds of other problems. So most women aren't tolerating it, but it's really a Band-Aid at this point. So they don't have a lot of options of what to do and how to give. And the broken healthcare system is part of that, right? Where they have like 5 to 10 minutes max to even have a conversation about it. Or they might say, well, lose a few pounds or reduce your stress. But most women don't really know how to do that. They need help doing that. Mm-hmm. They need to understand, okay, you're telling me I need to lose weight. So what are they going to go on some crash diet or start taking, fen or, going on Weight Watchers? Or I guess there's ways, but really there's so much more to balancing out hormones than losing weight. You know that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's all those modalities are all treating the symptom, not getting to the cause. And we'll get into some of the things that you do with your clients and patients to get to the cause. Before we get there, can you explain the transition, right? A menstruating woman transitions to perimenopause, and then that transitions to postmenopause. What is happening at the hormonal level at those 3 different periods?
So the hormones are highest during the menstruating years. They fluctuate all throughout the month. They're not the same. That's why it's crazy to put someone on a birth control pill, because you're taking the same amount of hormones every day, except for 5 days a month, but your hormones are different all throughout the month. There's constant change. We have 30-day cycles. That means estrogen is higher sometimes, progesterone is higher sometimes. They're both lower sometimes. They're both higher sometimes. And there's other hormones that are involved as well. I'm not even talking about the whole slew of other hormones, right? And so as far as what's happening then is we're able to ovulate. Eggs are released. If the egg is not fertilized, then you get your period and the hormones all kind of drop down to the lowest again, and the cycle can start over. When we're going through perimenopause, and thinking back to puberty, remember puberty?
Yes, I do.
Good times, right?
Fun times.
So that took years. We forget because we were young, we were kids, but puberty takes years to go through. And was puberty easy?
It was a wild time.
It wasn't that easy.
Yeah.
Right? And so we weren't on this planet as many years, absorbing toxins for as many years, picking up as many stresses. I mean, some kids go through lots of stress, but as adults, we have our whole history, all of that coming with us, the stresses of everyday life. Many women have their kids. They're many times taking care of parents at this age. So they go into perimenopause, right? So puberty is the brain is connecting with the sex glands, ovaries for women, testes for men. And perimenopause is when the brain is disconnecting again. So there's this window of time where the body is learning how to transfer the baton from the ovaries to the adrenals. Sometimes we get our period, the brain's connected to the ovary. Sometimes we don't. Okay, we're not connected this month, and we're not going to ovulate. The ovaries are just slowly going to sleep, essentially.
Yeah.
And menopause is when they're done. Now the adrenals are in charge. The adrenals are now responsible for taking over, making estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So if you've been burning the candle at both ends, okay, moms, ladies, daughters, badass CEOs, whatever you do, all of that is now on your adrenal glands. They're not taking good care of how you're eating. Maybe you don't get enough sleep. You're staying up late on your phone. You have different stressors, right? The adrenals are carrying the weight of our lives, and now they're asked to be given 3 new jobs. It's like their coworker quit. Think about, right? Your coworker leaves and you have to do all their work. And these poor little glands, they're like teeny tiny. They're responsible for so much, all of our stress response, and much more. And now they're not going to do it. They're like, screw that. I'm not really into that. And so we think we don't make hormones because the adrenals are just not prioritizing that. When your body is stressed, the priority is survival, not sex life, And so it becomes, that's the first biggest problem that I see. And, it's when women join the workforce, we didn't leave our old job behind, which was caring for the house and raising the kids and all of that. Instead, we just added another full-time job onto our lives. And it's a heavy burden. And I'm not saying I have a wonderful spouse who's, over there and he helps with all the house, we're sharing that, right? We share in that, but it's not always that way. It's not always that way. And there's this generalized viewpoint that we're responsible as the moms, right, to take care of the kids, to raise the kids. I'm not saying dads don't have their place. Of course they do. And there's lots of wonderful dads out there. But my first husband couldn't nurse my kids, right? I had to do that.
Yeah.
That was my job, right? So, and I was still working. I had a practice back then, and I nursed no bottles, never had bottles, neither kid. 2 years for the first kid, 2.5 for the second kid. So, it was hard. It was really hard. So all that, it started for me, I'm sure, but I also had tools. And I think that a lot of women are left without any kind of toolbox whatsoever. And they've not really been taking the best care of them. For trying to look good, that might be their general reason for working out and things.
Right. Yeah.
But that's not yes, there's a sign of wellness how you look, but there's lots of ways to look amazing. It doesn't mean they're healthy, right?
True.
So I really see this as part of like how come perimenopause becomes such a disaster and such a nightmare is all of those stresses and all of those things, which makes it really hard. So then menopause, and a lot of women already had hormone imbalances. They've been on the birth control pill. Yeah. Or they've had an IUD, Mirena, that gives off hormones. They've had Depo shots and Nuva rings and things where they haven't. I've had women tell me I haven't had a period in 9 years because they put the ring or whatever in.
Wow.
9 years, your best detox you can do every single month, you stopped. And all that's up in your body. It's tragic.
Yeah.
It's tragic. So now to make that, now they're left without producing enough hormones. And because of their toxic or overburden at a cellular level, they're also not able to use their hormones properly. So the only way around it is either you're basically needing hormone replacement unless you learn how to make a change for yourself, and you can avoid all that.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah. We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
So just to unpack what you just shared.
Sure.
Menstruation, let's say every 30 days or so, women have different cycles there. And then perimenopause could be years, right? And 12 months without a period is classified as menopause. And then you're in menopause for a day, which is interesting. And then every day after that,
it's postmenopause.
It's postmenopause.
Right.
It's just interesting classification there. And what's happening is the adrenal glands are picking up the slack as the ovaries are preparing to shut down and eventually retire. So the adrenal glands are now producing testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen, three really important hormones, as the ovaries are producing less and less, and then eventually no more. So it sounds to me that supporting those adrenal glands are very important.
Critical. And
would you start doing that even before you're in menopause, meaning during your perimenopausal years as well?
Oh yeah. We have a lot of menopausal women we're trying to help right now, but what I always tell them is tell your daughters, tell the younger generation, start now. You don't have to wait to start taking care of yourself, right? I mean, it's so much harder to scurry around and fix it than it is just to prevent it in the first place. So why can't we start teaching our younger women that they could take better care of their adrenal glands now. They don't need to run into a wall when they hit this stage in their life. And there was something I would like to just mention as well, as it just popped up for me. Women aren't acknowledging that these two important glands in their life that they've had their whole adult life, they're now gone, basically. Like they're in their body, but they're asleep. And I do feel there should be some kind of, maybe not a party or celebration, but some level of ceremonial acknowledgement of this loss. It's a loss. And a woman that goes through hysterectomies, which are often, it's a very 600,000 a year or something in this country.
Wow.
And maybe it's more now. Nobody talks to them about the emotional toll.
It's like a mourning process
of losing. Think about what these glands and organs are. The uterus is your center of creation as a woman on an energetic and an emotional level, spiritual level. I feel there needs to be more for women than just go in and like this mechanical body, you'll just pull it out and now you go home and that's the end of it. And there's a lot of underlying trauma with that that's unresolved, a lot of emotional trauma. And we need to work on that. We need to really work on that for sure.
I agree. What would you say to the women out there that are watching and listening that are in menopause? They have symptoms, they're suffering, they're not getting any answers from their doctors, they're being misled or given misinformation, they're losing hope. What would be your message to them?
There's another way. And you just have to be willing. You have to be willing to change. What got you here, you can't keep doing. You have to be willing to make a change. And that's part of what we really work on, is empowering women to take that first step, to make a change and putting themselves first. Putting yourself first allows you to start making changes for yourself, because we are societally, I know because I'm reformed, I've retrained myself. Women are taught if you put yourself first, you're selfish. You're supposed to martyr yourself and put everybody else and do for your community, do for your religious body, your church or your synagogue, be there for your kids, your spouse, your job. Everybody gets you and you're last on the totem pole. And that's part of the problem. That's a big part of this problem. And so acknowledging that they can't keep going that way, and that putting themselves first is actually the least selfish thing they could do for every single aspect of their lives, because they're going to show up in a completely different level of being for everybody else. That has to change. I would say that's probably is the biggest understanding, is you've got to be willing to make some changes to embrace this new stage and feel amazing in this stage and start taking care of you.
Put yourself first. That's good advice for both women and men. If you fill your cup up, and your cup could overflow to everybody in your life, like you said, you'll show up more powerful, more vital, more energized. You'll be your true self, and then you could show up better, not just for yourself, but for your relationships when you put yourself first.
That's right.
So what are some ways that they can support their adrenals? What are some of the things that you do to really help with to master stress?
Well, stress is, threefold: physical, chemical, emotional. So you got to look at all of the things.
Yeah.
Right? Are you sitting too much? Are you exercising at all? Are you exercising too much, by the way?
Good point.
Over-exercising can absolutely stress your adrenals. I have this conversation every day with women. That's a big one for me as well. I mean, I'm in my 50s. I'm in menopause now. Even though I'm still physically so fit, I can do so much more than I'm doing. I do better with less. I actually find that when I skip days, even though I work out with weights and I do lots of things, I actually feel less inflamed, less stressed. I sleep better. It's just a different care that our body needs. So physical is really caring for yourself in those ways. Chemical is huge. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's huge. It's just constant everyday bombardment with chemicals. So how can we control our chemical stress? Working on internal blockages and interferences, whether it's infections or things like heavy metals, or just, having glyphosate in your body from eating non-organic foods, which even eating organic foods, we can get glyphosate. And because there's so much cross-contamination. And I mean, it's complicated, guys, but I know it's not perfect and you don't have to change it in one day. But when you run out of eyeliner, maybe find a less toxic version of that. And you can use lots of apps and things, you can look that up. But women are exposed to way more toxins than men. We just put more stuff on our bodies. We, our hair, our makeup, our perfumes are horrendous for hormones. What you're washing your clothes with, what you're, it's just the air things in your house that smell, what do they call them? Plugins.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, how can we minimize our exposures and then add good things in, like water filtration, air filtration, and not have to do it all in one day. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be just, how can we clean up the chemical stressors? And then working with a practitioner really makes a difference when you can work on deeper detox and helping with underlying infections and things. And that could be, there's lots of women are putting Botox and chemical fillers and things in their face for beauty, but they don't realize they're adding to the dis-ease inside their body. Their body now is being distracted, where it's normally able to detox things. Now it gets overburdened just from the things that we're trying to look good.
Right.
And then, of course, then emotional stress. So what can we do every day? Like, I get up and I'm addicted to the brain tap. That's just something that I absolutely love. I work on my lymphatics. I actually brought some of my tools that I use with me, but I do lymphatic drainage every day. And I make sure that, how do I put myself first? I literally put myself first in the day. I don't talk to anybody
Sorry, Troy.
He'll know. He knows I just want to be alone in the morning. I just need my me time. So I work on my mindset. I work on my stress reduction. I lay on like a infrared grounding mat with red light. I put my brain tap on. I do that at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. On my busy days, I actually take like a half-hour break and do it again. And that really sets the tone. Now I have new things I'm doing. I'm getting out and trying to watch the sunrise every day, watch the sunset every day. It's not easy. I'm busy. I want to go and do and all that too. And I'm in the process of how can I watch the sunset and do the brain tap, which is supposed to have your eyes closed, right? And do all the things and fit it all in. And then I also love moving my body. For me, it's a big stress relief. And even on those days that I'm not doing any heavy stuff, I still will walk and do lighter things or stretch or just kind of honor my body on those days. And like I said, I always move my lymphatics. So we have a vibe plate I stand on, and I use my Flow Vibe. I brought a few tools. I use my Flow Vibe. I don't know, 𝙀𝙀𝘾𝙄𝙀.
Love 𝙀𝙀𝘾𝙄𝙀. Yeah.
Very good friend of mine.
We love her.
And,
yeah.
So there's a biosonic vibrational tool that I use on my lymphatics, and I do manual lymphatic stuff every day. Just things that I know are helping me get me in a better state every day. So it doesn't have to cost money. You don't need all the tools. Like you could just do breathing exercises. Mm-hmm. Go on YouTube and find a breathing exercise that you like. Free. Right? Bob Proctor has one of my favorite meditations of all time, his abundance meditation. It's been there for me for I don't even know how many years. And I definitely started with free meditations. You can find so much. There's so much content out there. But those are really good ways. It's just like, how do you wake up in the day? Do you wake up and start rushing around making, lunches for other people? Or are you like giving yourself time? Are you giving yourself, even if it's 20, 15 minutes, it's still better than zero.
I agree. I love that you brought up Bob Proctor, my favorite. That's speaking my love language there with Bob Proctor. Yes. He's right there on the wall.
Oh my God, I didn't even see that. Hi, Bob.
I study him every day. Even I was in my infrared sauna just a couple hours ago watching some of his videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I want to ask, you mentioned the 3 different areas of stress. We have the mental, physical, and emotional. Let's get into the more of the physical a little bit. How important is it to build lean muscle mass as a perimenopausal, postmenopausal woman?
Yeah, it's extremely critical at that stage. I mean, our bodies we start losing muscle at around age 35. And every year it actually accelerates. Every decade it's accelerating. So I want to have my independence. I want to be able to travel in my 90s. I'll be around for the great grandkids by then, right? And be able to get on the floor, get up off the floor, feed myself, dress myself, drive a car. That's my plan, right? And if we're losing muscle every year after age 35, you're talking about, 50, 60 years later of losing muscle. So it is critical for any person, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or what stage you're in, to be working on your lean muscle tissue. It is critical. Doesn't have to take a lot of time, 30 minutes, 3 times a week of just covering all the different areas. And that's enough actually to boost your hormones. It really makes a difference with men and women. Like you want to raise your testosterone, start doing some legs. Start doing legs, do the bigger muscle groups, like work on that stuff. It will help you. It really will go up. In addition to that, it boosts your energy, it boosts your brain function. Wow, we're having an epidemic right now of that, I think, right? It just seems like more people are driving around, like, on the road. Mm-hmm. I'm like, does anybody know what the hell's going on anymore? I feel like people are, not to be judgmental, but there's a significant difference in the last few years. Of course, we've had a lot of extra toxins come along. It's significantly noticeable that people seem kind of out of it a lot. And when I meet people, it's one of the biggest concerns women have is they're losing their edge in the workplace. And there was a study that came out, 3,000 women they looked at that had just one menopausal symptom by age 50. 43% of them were out of the workforce at 55.
Wow.
They left. So I think about like what does the average woman make? Maybe 40 or 50,000 in this country or something a year times 10. That's what they're now losing that in their work years. Financially, it's a huge problem. And we need women in the workforce, right? We need our brains, our creativity, our ability to multitask. Like, we bring something different to the table. We can't be having women mass exodusing from the workforce. And that's what's happening. It's almost 50%. I mean, that's really high.
It's crazy.
Yep.
With the exercise, you mentioned 30 minutes, 3 times a week, hitting different body parts. That'll do it to keep up, not just keep up with the decline of muscle mass, but actually to build muscle mass and overcome the decline. Should protein be increased at this time for postmenopausal women?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. I feel varying it is
some days high protein, some days not so much.
Yeah, diet variation is always best. I personally love experimenting with all of this, going carnivore for a little while, or having, being more keto, or I land mostly on more of a Mediterranean, that just my body just thrives. But I absolutely make sure I'm getting 3 to 4 really good quality portions of protein every day, because we need protein to build the muscle.
Yeah.
So if you're having trouble building muscle, you absolutely are going to need more of that protein to do that.
What are some ways that you use for your patients and clients to track their stress level to see if, we know about hormesis. We talk a lot about stress not being bad unless you're not adapting to it. Stress being very good when you adapt to it. So raising this hormetic ceiling. And I personally look at my, of course, heart rate variability. Is that something you recommend as well, looking at heart rate variability and sleep as a way to see if you're adapting to these stressors?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many great tools that we have, and all of the tools are great, whether it's the strap around your wrist or on your finger. And there's other good tools that you can use to monitor, like heart math, right? To actually work on that. We used to have a machine in the office when we had people coming in. They could put their hand on it. It was like a NASA machine. Really cool. They could put their hand on it. We can read their whole heart rate variability.
That's cool.
It was really, really cool, but we really we stopped using it. And now there's so many gadgets and things that people can get. And I really do try to get people away from their iWatches, because they're giving off so many EMFs. That's one of the things I like about the Ring, because you can really turn it off and then just download your stuff into it, so it's not disrupting your sleep at the same time. But yeah, those are all wonderful tools. And also just tuning in and becoming more self-aware. I feel like we're so disconnected. We're taught to disconnect, right? If you have a headache, take this thing. If you have heartburn, take that thing. If you're constipated, take this thing, whatever. I mean, we're disconnected from our body's messages. We're not listening. If you just can listen, you have the most incredible tool right in front of us that you don't need to buy. You could just start tuning into that tool, doing some breathing and really asking, you have a knee pain, like, what is it that you're trying to tell me? Ask your knee. Like, literally sounds so corny, but you can stop and take some deep breaths and relax and just, what do you need from me? You would be surprised just what you might get as an answer. Things show up in funny ways, but this is just a really cool tool. So I know, your heart rate goes up when you're stressed. You might be snappy. There might be, we could recognize when our bucket is overflowing, and to like have some tools to undo that, just naturally listening to your body.
Yeah, it's great advice. The body's always communicating to us, and symptoms are a gift. It's a way of the body. It's expressing what's going on.
Yeah.
If you're following a low carbohydrate keto diet or carnivore diet, this is one of the most important tips. I see a lot of people who struggle with keto and carnivore, and the reason they struggle is because they are losing too many electrolytes. They're becoming mineral depleted. Every cell in your body needs minerals to function, to produce energy, which helps you burn fat and feel good. My favorite minerals and electrolytes are from Beam Minerals. These are fulvic and humic compounds that are bioavailable that have over 70 minerals in them. It tastes like water. They're carnivore friendly. Let me explain why. There are no anti-nutrients in them. It does not break a fast. As a matter of fact, it could support your fasting window, and it's been a game changer for my health, and I recommend it to all my students. Head over to beamminerals.com. Use the coupon code Azadi at checkout, my last name, Azadi at checkout, to get a nice discount. Beamminerals.com, coupon code is Azadi. With your practice and some of the things that you're doing, so I'm gonna just put the 3 different categories here, 3 different ways that practitioners are dealing with menopausal women. We'll put category 1, they're just telling you to suck it up. It's part of the process, symptoms are common. They don't really have any solutions. That's one camp. Camp number 2 is better, I believe, and you could tell me if you disagree, but at least they're focusing on, okay, let's replace some of these hormones, bioidentical hormones, maybe progesterone creams or whatever it is. And then there's a camp number 3, which I think is where you lie, and which is a variation of maybe sometimes hormones, but not necessarily all the time. There's different ways to kind of go about it. So what is it that you're doing that's different than these 2 other camps out there?
So we take people through a transformational journey. We guide them, we educate them, we empower them with knowledge. We teach them how to take care of themselves, how to put themselves first, how to manage their stress, how to have more quality sleep. We work on detoxification and we empower them with that tool. That's really, really, really critical to not having to take the hormone replacement if someone doesn't want it or is told they can't have that. And a lot of women don't want that. And so we got to get the adrenals making the hormones and prioritizing our hormones. I talk with my hands a lot. And then we got to get the cells taking them up. Mm-hmm. Because all these toxins and all the insulin and all the inflammation that's damaging our cell membranes is clogging up the hormone receptors. And now you could be making all the hormones or even taking hormones from the outside. If your cells can't use them, you're still going to feel like garbage. You're not going to see a change. And you're really not solving anything, actually. So we really work to repair the cell so that people can heal and start feeling better. And we got to repair those mitochondria, get the cellular energy up, helps repair the sleep cycles, and just start moving out the stuff that's clogging things, like bogging women down, stealing their energy, and just get it out of the body. And dealing with any underlying infections I personally have had to do a lot of that work myself. I had breast implants. I justified that at one point in my life, even though I really it didn't fit with my real philosophy, but I was in a different place. And my first marriage was severely abusive. It was tough. I had to overcome a lot and but I wanted to feel a little better about myself. And that was something that it did at that time, which is so superficial. It didn't fix anything, but it gave me some confidence back at the time. But of course, as the later research started coming out and I was like, this has 37 neurotoxins in the shell alone. I got to get this out of immediately. I took them out. So it's like having really hard conversations with women. I didn't get those because I wanted to take them out. And most women did them because their self-esteem is low. Yeah. And you have to be in a certain place to do those kinds of things. So I can understand where they are coming from. And I always tell them, like, this isn't something I want to have to talk about, but I can't not. It's my responsibility to discuss how you got here with you and why your bucket's overflowing. It's not one thing. It's this combination of things that you've been exposed to and that you're doing, right? So we really work through that with women in a really loving, caring way and really support them on their journey for when they're ready to do those kinds of things, like to get a tooth pulled because it's a root canal or take their amalgams out. It's hard conversations. These aren't easy. I'm having my cavitation surgery in a few weeks.
That's right.
I'm finally doing that piece. It's taken years of working on cleaning up my own interferences. We know it doesn't happen overnight for people, but it's just being there to support them and so that they can feel like they can make better decisions for themselves. So we coach them. We provide supplements and labs and things like that. We want to make sure we're looking as best we can so that they feel confident in what they're doing, right? Like I could help someone without labs.
Yeah.
Do we really need them? I mean, sometimes they help, right? They help. They're insightful. But could we help someone doing the exact same thing we're doing without them? I believe so. I do believe so. And because it's a spot and, it's a moment. It's a moment. And our body's ever changing and adapting and moving and shifting. And it does help. But it's a question that I always think about. And so we really, through a process of healing, that's what we do with them. And so as their cells heal and their body, they're getting more of this freedom back in their lives, and they start feeling better and living better and sleeping better and more energy. And it just propels itself into wanting to live this way for the rest of their lives. And we want them to make a permanent change so that they can make good choices and have fun and travel and live life and go out to dinner and know what to do and how to take, be in a room full of people and not care what anybody thinks and be able to say, this is what I need.
Beautiful. So you help them, you educate them first and foremost, and you help them identify what's filled their stress bucket, work with them to reduce that stress bucket.
Yes.
Symptoms start to improve, eventually go away. And you get to the cause, and causes. Sometimes it's more than one cause.
Yes.
With the testing, you said something really interesting there, that do we actually need to test? And I agree that tests can be valuable as giving you some clues, some pieces to the puzzle. But if you were to identify some of the more important tests to do for postmenopausal women,
yes,
what would those tests be? What are your thoughts on a Dutch test at this time of life? Is there relevance to doing a Dutch test? Maybe you could explain a Dutch test to my audience for those who don't know. And what are some other of your favorite labs to do at this time?
Yeah, the Dutch test is a really wonderful test because we can see the pathways that hormones are traveling on, and it really breaks things down in a much more detailed way. And the reality is, your hormones are imbalanced for all these other reasons underneath. The hormone imbalance is the tip of the iceberg.
It's not the lab report's not giving you the cause. It's not showing you the actual cause of why it's imbalanced, if it is imbalanced.
That's correct. And that's my issue, right? So I do love gut health tests, and I do like blood. I do blood work. I do very extensive blood work. I think it's important to gauge the immune system. It's very important to understand if somebody is exposed to certain things or has certain imbalances like Lyme or something along those lines. It just could be because they need a specific protocol for that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's different than, having mercury in your body. It's just a different thing that we need to work on, right? Although it's all connected anyway, right? It's all connected. Or parasites, it's all connected. Like you got this thing over here because it's mopping up all this other stuff, right? But we're not going to really ever get rid of that if we don't get rid of the stuff it's mopping up too, or first. And so it's just this kind of, it's very complex and everybody's so different. So it's hard to be so definitive because there's so many variables and innuendos. And that's what I love about what I do is I just know everybody's coming in with a new background, a new story, a new history, a new life that they're living, and everything is always new. It's always different. It's really fun getting to be part of that. But yeah, so I do love that Dutch because it also gives people motivation to stay the course. People do need to see numbers. Just because I don't need them doesn't mean someone else doesn't need them. And
True.
I do them on myself. I like them too, to see where am I at? Where are my levels? If there's something I can improve upon, maybe. But that doesn't mean if my progesterone is lower than my estrogen, then I'm going to start doing progesterone. It means probably more stressed than I need to be, and then my progesterone is dropping as a result. So where can I go upstream and figure that out instead? So that's how I like to view it.
Yeah, I love that.
Must make sense.
Yeah,
and
no, it
food
makes sense.
testing's great too, by the way, because food sensitivities actually can be stressing the adrenals. So I do like testing foods too. And it does help people stay more like, hey, how can I get this out for a while?
Your backstory, share with my audience how you even got started as a doctor. I know you got into a bad car accident in 1993, I think it was, which kind of started your journey here. So I don't want to spoil it. You share your backstory with my audience.
Yeah, well, I grew up, I was always sick. From like my mother said, you came out and you were sick, basically. And I'm like, I don't think that's really how it went. I was dragged out. They call it knock 'em out, drag 'em out babies. My mom has no idea how I even came out. Wow. So actually you made me sick, doctors, by the way you removed me from my mother. That's how I view it. We don't know. Was there forceps? Was there anything? I was definitely inundated with chemicals from the second I came out.
Yeah.
I wasn't breastfed, of course, because that was low class in those days. Nobody breastfed. They all, if you can afford formula, you were something special.
Interesting.
That was like when formula really became huge. I was born in the very, very early 70s, just so you know. So anyway, but there was a lot of marketing to that being done, formula. And couldn't tolerate this, tubes in the ears, ear infections, antibiotics up the wazoo. And my mom and dad, they lost their first baby a few days old. So this kind of created this sense of chaos and stress of any sniffle or anything. And I understand, like, I don't blame. I look at it from an empathetic heart of why they were always so worried and ran me to the doctor every 2 seconds. But it did create a lot of disease in my life. It just did. So then it was allergy shots for, 10 years. Every Friday afternoon, I got shots. Never worked. I don't know why they kept doing it, but the doctor said to do it. So they did it. And then, of course, the asthma diagnosis. So here I was now. I'm in college. I'm pre-med. I want to be a pediatrician. Of course, that's my whole life I spent in the doctor's office. Right. What else would I want to be when I grew up? And I was a really smart kid. So they're like, a doctor, you are the one that's going to do that. So I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that. I want to do that. I want to help people. But when I was in college, I had some things that made me double, guess myself, really. Like, is this really what I want? My aunt at 47, out of the blue, died suddenly, had an aneurysm at 47.
Wow.
High cholesterol, high blood pressure, on the meds, and was always like on Weight Watchers kind of a thing, and just never really got healthy. So it's like, I thought they were taking care of her. How did this happen? And it just started making me, like, the veil of medicine was coming off. And then I wanted to be a doctor, but I decided not a medical doctor because I was doing volunteer work at a hospital. I was an EMT, and I was volunteering for that too.
Wow.
And this is while I was in college, and I disliked both jobs immensely. I'm like, I don't think I can spend the next 10 years of my life going to school to be in this field. It just felt wrong to me. And I don't know where, because I was on 10 pharmaceutical prescriptions, many over the counter. I had horrendous periods, couldn't get out of bed once a month. My whole period life up to this point was 13 years or something, where every month there would be a day I couldn't function.
Wow.
So I was really unhealthy myself. And I started realizing something's not right here. I don't want to do this. And someone said, hey, look at this brochure, Life College in Atlanta, being a chiropractor. I'm like, it said nutrition, it said science, sports health science, something natural, that fitness. I was always working out. And since I was 15, I exercised and would get up in the morning before high school. I don't know. There's things that you just kind of feel like you were chosen, right, for this path from the things I always did. And the choices I made somehow led me here. I really believe that.
Yeah.
So she shows me this brochure, and it was just like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'd never been to a chiropractor. So I got to school, and everyone is like, the power that made the body heals the body. Well, I'm thinking, you're all off your rocker. What the hell are you talking about? I had no concept of the inner wisdom of my body. I had no concept of the power I held inside. I was always outside in my whole life. So what did it take? Getting in a car accident and starting getting adjusted, where suddenly I started departing from the box that I was put in, opening up my limitations to a whole new way of, And I was like, anything that they don't do, I'm going to try. That was my attitude. And I was in school. I had to like find ways to pay for things. I got special tests at that time. I found what now would be called like a functional medicine doctor. He was a teacher at my school. He taught nutrition at my school, but he did all the tests and he did the things and he fasted me for a week.
Oh, really?
I was sick as a dog. He didn't prepare me whatsoever. Here I was, I had horrible health and I fasting for a week straight. This is back in like 93, 94, where I did a week-long fast.
Is that practitioner still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not practicing anymore, but he's alive.
Yeah. Well, that's really just fascinating. 93, you had to do a water fast for a week.
Yeah. And it just started my journey, you know, one thing after the next. Took about 5 years to really reverse and get off all the medications, get to a healthy weight for the first time in my life. I had like horrible, always acne, my skin cleared. I mean, it was just even like on the outside, like just how I presented to the world was so drastically different, and the confidence that I got and the certainty. Nothing can beat. I feel like I have the most certainty than anybody on the planet sometimes, right? I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where you've just lived it. You've experienced when I abandoned that way, I healed. So how can I ever think that's the way I want to go again, or that anybody should go? And not to say we don't need it sometimes. I smashed up my shoulder. I had to have repair done. It was hanging. It wasn't going back in.
How'd you do that? From the accident?
That's another story altogether. Right. No, that's more recent. That's more recent. But I was grateful for the surgeon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was grateful that I can still do pull-ups, right? And even though it was hanging, I couldn't even hold my purse, you know. But sometimes we need it. But most of the time, I don't know. Yeah,
I agree. That's fascinating. I mean, the fact that you were interested in going to Life University and chiropractic school and you had never been adjusted. And then God's like, all right, let's get you adjusted. Car accident. Adjustment.
Well, that's what happened with my shoulder. I'll tell you, God stepped in again because I knew the practice I wanted. I had it on a big Post-it note. Exactly what I have now. I wrote it out a year and a half before this happened. I had a dislocating issue, let's call it. And my husband and I, we had a little tiff on the morning of a cooking class I was teaching in my house. Nothing big deal. It was just an old conversation I didn't have time for. I got annoyed. I threw the bag of carrots on the floor, dislocated.
Oh, no.
Broke right through the inside of my socket.
Ouch.
And guess what that did? It was a gift that I was given because as much pain, it was like the most painful surgery, the most painful thing I've ever been through, physical pain. It gave me time to reinvent my practice. It gave me time to leave chiropractic kind of behind and do what I knew I was meant to do, which was this fabulous lifestyle practice of healing and wellness and bringing all of these components and this whole approach together into one. And I did, you know, really chiropractic still part of it a little bit, but not much. So, I'm very grateful for that experience. As hard as it was very difficult financially. A chiropractor can't use my body, you know. We went through a really tough emotionally that year, but ended up being one of the best years I had financially, interestingly. I didn't even work for 9 months. But because I was stepping into what I should have been doing all along. And I think that it just really just took off from there. And I'm really grateful for that. Happening.
Wow. Literal
Vitamin G.
Yeah. And literal pain to purpose there. Yes. Like that sounds excruciating. You mentioned fasting, that the practitioner you're working with in 93 had you do a water fast for a week. What are your thoughts on, because let me just give you a prerequisite here. We know that fasting is a stress to the body. However, we know that it could be a wonderful stress that could get you stronger and healthier. We just made the case that postmenopausal women have to be really conscious of their stress. So what are your thoughts on fasting for a postmenopausal woman? What is the right way to do it?
I think it's different for every woman. Number one, just recognizing that self-awareness needs to come into place of what's working for you and what's overdoing it for you. We can't fast too much, but you do need fasting. You do need it. We're in a world where you've been eating too much, too many times a day for way too long. You have to get rid of some of the old cells, make new ones. Like there's just so many benefits to this. I'm just a huge fan of fasting. In particular, I feel if can at least just drop one meal out a few days a week, like you're getting somewhere, right? If you could do one 24-hour fast a week, I think that's pretty cool too. You don't have to do it every week. Like when your hormones are at their like height, which when you're in menopause, they're not ever really getting much higher. But for non-menopausal women, you always want to fast less in those times.
Hormones are high, fasting is low.
That's correct.
When hormones are low, fasting is high.
That's correct. And so there's definitely certain times in the cycle that it's better to be fasting. And but it is really important because insulin becomes a big problem in menopause.
Become more insulin resistant, right?
Yeah, we start to see, there's a big rise in heart attacks 10 years after that menopause day.
The 24 hours.
I just always tell people, forget the whole post-menopause. I don't like that word. You're just in menopause. It stopped. Like, can't we just get rid of this last phase here? It's one phase. But so I would say we need to do it. It's very important to integrate 1 5-day water fast a year. If you want to do it once a quarter, great. Once a year minimum. But over fasting could be a problem too. And because we know if you do that, you're lowering your chances of cancer. And that's a huge problem in this world right now.
Yeah.
So how can we prevent cancer? Okay, the self-care helps. Why don't you start learn how to do it, which we teach. We have a course, like an online course that takes them through a month-long how to do it. But we also do a live one every January in a group. That's really fun. And we always do the fast too. And, but I would say varying, you got to vary it and listen to your body. I go through phases where I'm more hungry in the morning type person. So to me,
interesting.
I'm hungry in the morning. I get up and I'm like ready to eat. I want to eat within an hour of waking up. My stomach's growling. So I'm better at dropping off dinner than I am breakfast. Even though I could do it, I can work out, go all day till 2:00. I'll still be growling. I'm not passing out though.
Yeah.
Right. So my body's metabolically adapted to
Correct.
that. But I just find for me, I do better because I'm a morning person in general. Like that's when I need to support my energy and my body. So
makes sense.
It's just listening to your own rhythms and your own best times of the day and your body. And it's just what I've learned for myself.
Yeah. Hey, I want to just briefly interrupt the video you're watching to share something with you. One of my favorite companies that I use for health and longevity and biohacking is a company called Boncharge. And they have a whole range of incredible products, including the blue light blocking glasses you see me wear right now. But one of my favorite products from them is an infrared sauna blanket. Sauna blanket works by raising your heart rate to a workout or a training session. So you burn more calories while you're actually lying down and relaxing. Also, it's going to cause you to sweat. And one method of flushing out toxins from your body is through sweat. There's also one of my favorite benefits, this endorphin release. Every time I get out of the sauna blanket, I feel like I just got a 60-minute massage. So it's easy to set up. It's super convenient. Head over to boncharge.com/KetoCamp. And if you use the coupon code KetoCamp at checkout, you'll get 15% off your sauna blanket. And actually, any of their products are 15% off with that code. All right, let's get back to today's video. And what's happening inside of the body hour after hour during a fast?
Depends on how long you're going.
Yeah, let's do a 24-hour fast.
Let's just say in a 24-hour, the biggest step is getting to 17 hours. Because the first 17 hours, your body's basically just using up all of its glycogen and glucose stores. So there's a lot of food basically still in your system.
Right.
And until that's gone, you can't get into the important piece, which is getting into autophagy, where your body is eating the old senescent, worn out, dead cells. But you're not going to get into like the deeper healing in a 24-hour. You're just not. You're not going to be regenerating your immune system cells in that amount of time. But you're going to get rid of some stomach cells, some muscle cells. Like you are going to get rid of cells, no question. It's the longer fasting where we see the bigger resets. Yeah. Right. The hormone reset can happen even in 24-hour fasting. You can start reducing your insulin sensitivity. But the bigger resets of like getting rid of old white blood cells that maybe they've gone bananas. Like they think a piece of broccoli is a foreign invader.
Right.
How can we get our body to be able to eat those foods again? We gotta go a little further than that, right? And for people that are dealing with autoimmune issues and so on,
longer
you got to do longer fasting.
Work really well for them.
Yeah. So I think there's just so many benefits to fasting. You can play around with it, and I mean, I feel if you can't do it, you need to do it.
Yeah, right.
People that say they can't do it, I always say, then you need to do it.
Yeah, it's true.
I used to carry snacks in my purse everywhere I went. I used to have snacks in my purse, eating every 2 to 3 hours. And I couldn't go without food. I'd be like afraid to leave the house without something in my bag.
Yeah.
Because I would get so hangry and irritable and tired or whatever. So it's just, I love that freedom of not having to be dependent on food.
You said it, freedom. That's exactly it. Metabolic freedom. That's the name of my new book. That's exactly it.
I love your new name.
Thank you. That's exactly the point to achieve that. Unfortunately, 93% of Americans are metabolically inflexible. And for those wondering, 17 hours, how can I do that? Well, you wouldn't start there, right? You would start with maybe 12 hours, and you would use your sleeping window as a fasting window. Most people don't realize that. Definitely use those 8 hours or whatever it is as part of your fasting window. So then you would either push out your breakfast, which is not what Nicole does. She actually does it the opposite. She has her last meal earlier in the day, which is another option too. But either way it works. Either you have an earlier meal and then a few hours, go to bed, use that time, and then eventually you get 17 hours. Or you skip breakfast and go to like noon or so, and then you're around 16, 17 hours. But you'd start with 12 hours and then work your way to 13 and 14.
Even if you just push yourself an hour, like, hey, I'm going to set my clock. Like I love, there's a Life app, that Life app. Just set it. So like I can
Is it a fasting app?
Yeah, it's a fasting app. It's a Life app, I think it's called. Life is a little heart. And you can just set it on there and if you're getting hungry and you only have 30 minutes to go, just look to see, like you're almost there. Yeah. Have a glass of water, put a pinch of salt in it.
Distract yourself.
Just have a glass of water with salt. Yeah. Like you'll fill up the hunger pain and you'll be like, you're going to live.
Yes.
You're going to live. I promise you're not going to die for that extra half an hour. Right. And then maybe do that for a few days and then add a little bit more on. So it's just pushing your envelope to see how far you can go. I think you'd be amazed. If I got thrown into a 7-day fast with zero preparation, instantaneously stopped eating, you can certainly train your body into it.
Yeah, that's true. You did that.
And I lived, and I wasn't practicing that
Although we don't recommend that.
No, please don't do that. Let us teach you first.
What's the biggest myth on menopause out there right now?
Oh, God. I think there's a few.
What's the number one?
You have to take hormones.
That you have to take hormones to solve the symptoms.
Yeah.
You don't have to. To your point.
No, you don't.
When you get to the causes and remove that stress, lower that stress bucket.
Yeah.
You've seen it with patients. There's no need sometimes.
See it with myself.
With yourself.
And so I'm sitting here in front of you in menopause.
You're doing pretty good.
And my brain is better than I feel like my brain is sharper than it's ever been. My memory is amazing. I have had bumps. On this journey, but I've overcome them. Like I remember a few months into it, out of the blue, I started having hot flashes. And there was like a 6-week window where I wanted to kill somebody. Like, why am I waking up every 5 hours, every 3 hours? And I went through a phase and I'm grateful for it. And again, going back to that, because it gave me a sense of empathy for the people that I work with. Mm-hmm. And quickly made some changes. Like, what am I not doing or doing now to help me address this? What can I now be adding on or taking away? Or, we're all human. Like, you're not superhuman. And even though we seem like we are, and we're able to teach people how to be superhuman, the reality is we're all still human beings. We all have things in our lives. Like, I can't always control everything in my life, right? But where are the places that I can? So like when I noticed that was happening, that's when I started doing that second meditation in the day. I started taking a break in my practice. I would shut off the computers, like no lights, shut off all the lights, shut my door to my office. This is when I'm in the office or at home, wherever I'm working that day, and close my eyes and put on a meditation. 25 minutes max of just me time. Do not disturb, turn off the phone, not getting any Slack messages. Like, I'm out of here for 25 minutes. Do not bother me. And it really, really made a difference for me. It's like, how can I do better for myself? That's all I had to ask myself. How can I do better for myself?
What a great question to ask yourself. A couple things here as we land this menopause plane. I mentioned the book that I'm writing, Metabolic Freedom. It'll be out June of 2025. The principle is, you kind of explained it really well, actually. You're not handcuffed to your next meal. You don't have to count a single calorie. Your body's so metabolically healthy and flexible. It could use whatever substrate is available for energy and fat loss. So the question for you, Nicole, is what are your top 3 favorite ways to achieve metabolic freedom?
Okay. Well, fasting, that's probably I think that's the easiest way.
Yeah, it's free.
I just think it's also easy because as soon as you start fasting, even if you're not ever been in a ketogenic state, you're going to get there.
Yeah, correct.
Your body is going to figure it out.
Yes, it will.
Right?
Yeah.
So how else can we create metabolic freedom? Reducing the toxins in your life. Mm-hmm. You can't have a good metabolism if you're putting a bunch of gunk in your body all the time, or on your body, or you're being exposed. And I think that's a little more challenging because people don't really understand how to do that. They often need help. They need tools. They need protocols and supplements and ways to go about that. And but I would say that would be next.
Yeah.
And I do feel that bringing our stress down and working on those pieces and of the emotional body that we carry and resolving underlying issues that could be emotional, physical, or chemical.
Yeah.
Really interfere with our body's ability to be at its best function.
Great answer. I love the answer because in the book, there's a chapter on all 3 of those. Mental health, or how your thoughts influence health or disease, fasting, and also toxicity. Before I get to this final question, your website is drnicole.com.
That's correct.
drnicole.com. We'll reference that in the notes below. You have a book called Awaken Wellness, which I have endorsed. I was grateful to endorse it. Taking Back the Power to Control Your Own Health, and it's available on Amazon, which I'll put a link for down below. Anywhere else you want my audience to check you out on social media?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram, Dr. Nicole Rothman, Facebook. You can find me. You'll find me. Just put Dr. Nicole Rothman.
We'll put it in the notes. We'll make it easy for you.
We'll have it there. And if you do need help with menopause, we do offer free webinars on a regular basis for people to attend and to understand and feel really part of a community, because the women that are on there, like, a lot of people are going through this. You're really not alone. And I really want you to know you're not alone, and there is help and there is support. And if you do attend that, if you have a partner or you have a spouse, like, get them involved, because they really have no clue what is happening to you. You don't know what's happening to you. Well, they really don't. And they deserve to be part of your journey too, and understand your body as well and the changes it's going through. Because women disconnect, our brain disconnects from ovaries, but men, they don't disconnect from their testes.
True.
Okay, so we got to find a happy medium here so that we can have joyous, loving, and connected relationships and be able to open up this conversation. Because hormone imbalances are not a disease, so it's viewed as there's nothing really wrong with you, or maybe it's in your head, or, oh, it's just that menopause thing. And that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And they are diseasifying menopause now. So don't allow that, and know it's just a natural stage, whether you have a surgical menopause or a natural menopause. If you're alive, you're going to go through this as a woman. So we can embrace it, we can be empowered through it, and we can really step into our best selves through it.
Beautiful. And you can find those webinars on Nicole's website, drnicole.com. Last question is on gratitude, vitamin G. You mentioned it earlier. What do you have vitamin G for today, Nicole?
For you, for all the people watching, and hopefully they'll continue spreading the message that we're spreading, our wellness message, and making a difference in the world. So I'm grateful for my husband sitting over there watching, my family. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for all the people that trust me to help them on their journeys. My dog, right?
Yeah. Gotta be grateful for those dogs.
Dog. You know, there's so much. I don't know where to begin with that. There's a long list. My team, but I really am thankful for you for all the work you're doing, and you're making such an amazing impact. And I'm super grateful to be here on this podcast with you. And so thank you for helping me get my message out too.
If you enjoyed that conversation, check out the recent interview I did with Dr. Berg, all about eating the right foods on keto and carnivore, how to burn fat and feel good.
Sometimes people think that ketones are a secondary source of fuel and the primary is glucose, but if that was the case, where was this glucose available long ago when our bodies were developing? It's so